This is the Manscaped podcast about being a man in today's ever-changing world. I'm Joseph Benish.
And I'm Tim Cox. In this short round, we add our commentary to recent changes in the media, where there's been some very public firings at CNN and Fox News. What are your thoughts?
I think long overdue. And, I think people on kind of, both sides of those political spectrums will agree. I was talking with a friend yesterday, and I did not have a chance to look this up before this episode because we have full lives. We're not full-time podcasters yet. But she said...
Sure.
and she's someone in the know. She's a very well-researched, smart person. And she said the FCC used to oversee news organizations and essentially give them, like, credibility. It wasn't like a license, but like a stamp of like, okay, you are news, you're unbiased, you do research. So I think long overdue because ever since that, I guess it would have been deregulation, we've seen news organizations move into entertainment organizations. And these two people as sort of the talking heads, the literal personifications of a talking head with opinions that has moved away from news into entertainment and pure opinion, regardless of facts.
Yeah, I agree.
What say
and
you,
these
my conservative friend?
The 24-hour news cycle. I mean, I've been saying this for quite a long time, but more than a decade. That you have 15 minutes of news, and you have 23 hours and 45 minutes of just yappy. It's all opinion, speculation, it's conspiracy, it's commentary. And I think just because these news organizations in general has just gotten away from reporting to the news, they've kind of taken steps down to essentially, just report what's crazy stories are going on. It's like the rumor mill, and it's or the gossip, the Steel Magnolia's barbershop. The news cycle is no better than that. I mean, there are some that I like that, mainly people who just straight up read the news. And there are some people who have opinion shows, commentators, and stuff like that. I'll watch those just to kind of get a rise out of that, but overall, I think a lot of the news is it's become angrier and angrier and angrier. And you look at, the two big firings are essentially Tucker Carlson at Fox News and Don Lemon at CNN. And, Tucker Carlson, he's a very talented person. He's just a horrible human being, and he's really degraded his content from his CNN days, and he's, if the shoe fits, he's been terminated from every network that he's been on, but Don Lemon used to be like, he used to be very straightforward news, and he's gotten, when he had his own show on CNN before they moved him to the mornings, he just really just got angrier and angrier and angrier, and this is the rhetoric that's being, shot out to our society. Where we now just have this angry society. And I think the media is where it starts, in general.
And I think there are two causes for that. One of them is a whole nother topic that we're going to need multiple episodes to cover. The first cause is that we've gone away, like you said, the 24-hour news cycle. It happens fast with with technology and cell phones in particular. You're reporting on something and putting out there so that people see it first, so you're the first to report it. Because news stations have always wanted to be first on the scene.
Yeah.
But one thing, the first cause that we've gotten away from is, and people may remember this, it used to be, even when we were kids, maybe even when we were in our 20s, for those of us who know how old we are, when you read a newspaper, there was like a 99, 98% chance that story in the newspaper was vetted. It was fact-checked. It was vetted. Yeah. And so now we have a whole generation, and I think that including our parents who grew up with that, And so when if they happen to go down like an MSNBC channel or a Fox News channel, they're still living with that idea that if someone put it on paper or put it on, the evening news, it must be true.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
think we're living with the ironic sort of residual results of news historically being pretty well vetted, pretty unbiased. Like, here's a thing that happened, period. Without the commentary, without the big bold headlines. Scrolling across the screen 24 hours a day. The other one, and I don't know if people will give this enough sort of credit or damage, is I think it's one of the downsides of capitalism. Because these big
Absolutely.
news organizations are, publicly traded companies, quarterly statements, and that would include people who invest in them. If you've got stocks
Mm-hmm.
or a 401k or whatever, you just look at the numbers. So it reduces us to these numbers. So these TV
Mm-hmm.
stations, it's such a, it used to be a tricky balance. Down they're just off the rails. It used to be a balance between you got to make money, to stay on
Mm-hmm.
the air. TV is expensive, so you do want watchers and listeners. But once you go down that road too much, where the dollar starts to drive the news,
Mm-hmm.
where your number of you're trying to compete with the Super Bowl on viewership, then as a news organization, you've gone down the dark path. You're
Mm-hmm.
hanging out with Darth Vader in the break room, like you're in the dark side of the
Yeah.
force. That's easy for me to say because I don't run a news organization, but how you find that balance between objective facts and maintain a payroll and millions of billions of dollars of equipment, that might be trickier. But they've clearly gone off the rails, and I think
Yeah.
capitalism
And
is one of the reasons for that.
yeah. Well, I have to also, conversely to that, the reports that I've been reading about Tucker Carlson's firing, he was the number one show on Fox. He had massive viewership.
Probably on TV.
He had,
I mean, Fox has got a huge
yeah,
audience.
I mean,
Yeah.
right. And he also had, just unfiltered editorial, just he could report anything carte blanche, and this is also why he was, so well received on Russian state TV as well after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is a fact, and they actually came out, and a defense minister had yesterday actually had made a comment about Tucker Carlson being fired, and so and then of course he just popped up with a message on his little Twitter feed, kind of gaslighting, saying that the media is the enemy and all this kind of stuff, and it's I can't believe somebody like that, but a tip of the hat, I mean, to the Murdochs, in a roundabout sort of way, they're all about money. They've admitted this Dominion lawsuit has actually just completely just said, hey, that's it. It's about the cash. Tucker Carlson was sued recently, and Fox had to come out and say, he's not news, he's entertainment. And so they kind of took his credibility away in the court system. So, good for them to kind of negate the ratings, the advertisements, the money, the number one rated show on their network, to just get rid of somebody who reportedly, allegedly is just a horrible person. For someone I think someone to get to that level, to descend down a dark path, just in general, to just become worse and worse of a person is like, it's, he's the type of person who can't handle the fame, the fortune, all the power that comes along with things. And, from what I understand, a lot of the staffers at Fox are celebrating. So, tip of the hat to the Murdochs for walking away from that kind of money to,
Yeah. And
part
we
ways
talked
with
about
him.
in a recent episode, we talked about how fame, fortune, money, power, all those things have a long history of corrupting
Yeah.
people and taking them out of
Absolutely.
what it means to be an everyman. And they start to believe their own press and get in their own head. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Don Lemon is kind of on that same way, and not as bad, not on the same track as just basically spouting conspiracy theories every night at 8:00. But,
Yeah.
he did get kind of, I think he got big headed, and when he was removed from his solo show and put in like a morning show because they wanted to have some change at CNN, it's, you got to take a hit on the ego, and he's
Yeah.
Got a little bit more snippy with people.
Yeah. One of the other things I want to say to our listeners is something I try to remind myself. It's the analogy, the metaphor for this, the parallel is you're in traffic on your way to work and you're cussing at the other drivers. You're like, oh, there's traffic. It's so terrible. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we often forget that we're part of that traffic. So there's an irony in being frustrated with the traffic that you're in your car,
Right.
in your single car
Mm-hmm.
driver. Similarly, I think people need to remember, because the word media gets thrown around, and I want people to find that middle ground, again, the space I think you and I are working for. If you've gotten your news from anywhere aside from walking down from the mountain and talking to the guys at the post office, you are consuming media, whether that media is Fox, MSNBC, your Facebook page, the Guardian, NPR. You are consuming media, and you're part of that media machine as a consumer. So people need to stop saying, oh, the media, because the media is massive amalgamous. It has, a spectrum of conservative and liberal and crazy, and saying NPR is my main source for media. And people need to know that they're a part of that system. And like, that's, for me, that's part of that, like, okay, I could be a part of the problem. How do we get back to sanity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good call. I mean, I would say, you really have to kind of take things with a grain of salt, number one. But one of my favorite critical thinkers is my brother. And he is a conservative. However, his perspective is, you shouldn't be watching Fox News. You shouldn't be watching MSNBC. You shouldn't be just taking one side or the other. You should be getting your information from all of them. And just really kind of thinking critically about what exactly people are saying and how they're delivering those kinds of messages. And also, it's important to look at what are people outside of the U.S. saying about the U.S. How are they looking at us? So BBC, Al Jazeera, those kinds of media outlets that are international, it's important to get your information from different sources. Just because you don't like, so and so on Fox News, or so and so on George Scarborough on MSNBC, or whoever on Dana Bash on CNN. Just because you don't like those people doesn't mean that they're not going to have somebody relevant on that's going to actually say something relevant that's truthful and meaningful. But again, know where you know their messages. But also, it's important, like you said, when it comes to capitalism, know who their parent companies are and what they represent. Because
follow the money.
Yeah, follow the money. Have an objective perspective on things, and don't just simply just take everybody, like everything at Fox is all I want to listen to, and everyone's right on this station, and the election was stolen, and all this other kind of stuff. And the liberals that watch MSNBC, and everybody on there is just out to get everybody, and blah blah blah. That's just crap. Because every station still has somebody who's on the payroll who, well, I take that back, because Chris Wallace left Fox, but for the most part, they try to have like some opposing opinions, in their lineup. But
yeah, and something that people can do, an action item, a call to action, listeners, is I guess two calls to action. One is, if you think you've heard something on any news station, before you share that again, do two pieces of research. Go online, find two other sources that can confirm it. And then the second call to action is support a local publication. So I actually support Capital Times. Capital Times is Arizona's legislative newspaper. And so they report in, I think, really, really unbiased, fact-based reporting and stories on what bills legislators are putting out, what the caucuses
Mm-hmm.
are saying, etc. And that's very
Mm-hmm.
intentional. I don't read Capital Times very much anymore now
Mm-hmm.
that I'm a little further away from that. But I knew it was important to buy a subscription. So
Yeah.
that's a call to action. Like support a local newspaper because they're hurting because these big companies with their big dollars can swallow them up.
Mm-hmm.
And just do your freaking research if you're going to
Yeah.
talk about it.
That's exactly what I do. When I hear something that sounds a little wacky, I mean, it might as well be the rabbit hole that I jump into to just read what everyone is saying about something and try to find the facts. Go to like Snopes where they're trying to fact check things, and there's I can't remember his name. He's on CNN. He does a fact check of everything. He'll fact check things, and then he'll essentially explain why. And it's important for if there's a news outlet that doesn't have fact checkers that are out there, because it's just important to write news articles that are fact checked publicly than it is to have the news out there. Because, I mean, I can't tell you how much I'm a proofreader as well. So it just bugs the crap out of me when I'm sitting here reading articles online and there's just spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, and those kinds of things. That's just me nitpicking and just being anal retentive. But, but you can tell that there was no proofreading that went into this article. It was just written and posted, and that was it. It might as well have been a blog. So, you look at the quality of what's being put out there. And if it's not very good quality, because a lot of stuff is just really just to break the article or, break the news and right. Just be the next person, get the clicks
to get your attention. Yeah. Right, yeah.
Circling back to money.
Yeah. Question is, do you feel like these will start to steer these massive organizations, these massive ships back towards center, or are we still headed off the rails?
There's a lot of work to do. I mean, I still think a lot of the center is not really paying any attention to anything. A lot of people who are, I like to think that there's a lot of people that are a little bit more socially liberal and politically conservative, that are out there, that they just would rather, they just aren't paying attention. But, I do think the political climate is also a good reflection of the media outlet. Media has gotten more outraged. Politicians have become more outraged. A lot of things that you would see in politicians are just flat out ignored. I used to watch Matt Salmon who was a congressman in the East Valley. He was replaced by the very controversial Andy Biggs. Matt Salmon he would get up there and he would call out his own party, and I'm a very staunch believer in if you're a Diamondbacks fan, you don't blame the Dodgers when the Diamondbacks are losing, but it's everybody else's fault except their own, and I remember in the 2013 government shutdown, Matt Salmon was up on there. He's like, no, he was calling out Republicans, just saying, no, that's not true. That's not true. And it was, we have a long way to get back to that, because it's a lot. You really have to get to the point where the media has to kind of wage war against politics to basically say, vote these people out, that are not going to act in good faith, that are just going to want to perpetuate dishonesty and conspiracy theories and those kinds of things. So it's kind of a one hand washes the other type of thing. So I really think that making change, I do think these lawsuits against all the conservative media outlets after the 2020 election, the Dominion and Smartmatic lawsuits, they'll probably wipe Newsmax and OAN off the face of the planet, and the Smartmatic one was going to do some damage at Fox, after this last Dominion one. So, I mean, it just depends. So, and it's kind of a wait and see.
Good. Yeah, I hope that steers this massive ship towards center a little bit, puts a little tweak in that rudder, because I hear a lot of people, talk about personal responsibility, but the other half of that's only half the circle. It's only a half measure. The other half of that is accountability or consequences. Yeah. We know that, people, large organizations, will start to go askew if there aren't, consequences in place. And that's sad that we need that sometimes, but we do in many phases in life. Corporate companies have that. If sales are bad, there's going to be consequences. If a product's bad, there's going to be consequences. And the same should be true for our media and our politicians.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, consequences are kind of subjective. So, on the conservative side of media, consequences are because, you're sexually harassing people, whereas on the liberal side of things, you're messing with the money, or you're getting too angry on TV, and you're losing viewership, so, there has to be a well-rounded, there's no ethics in media anymore, and that's where I think
in big media. Yeah.
Right.
Like we got to practice that nuance. There's a lot of media, outlets. Maybe it's the majority that have gone away from ethics, and fact checking, and we got to get them to come back to fact check.
But as long as it's an emotional response, that's what gets the clicks. That's what gets the ratings. Yeah,
and that's where our responsibility is as individuals is maybe stop. If people have those apps on their phone, stop going to that app, stop going to that website or that TV station, slow yourself down. You don't need to know about the next, big political statement right away. Wait till the evening to check out your local news. Wait till the morning to read your paper, or go on your local news station's app to give them the numbers. That's where we exercise personal responsibility in how we interact with the media, because we are part of that media machine and we have to take that lead.
Yeah. There's also people on social media that really kind of honestly report certain things, and they're really doing their due diligence online. You don't have to go to the major media outlets. You can look at them on Twitter. Some of these people, they're reposting things. So the major media outlets don't get the clicks, they don't get the views, but yet at the same time you're informed objectively about, it's just basically this person said this and here's the video clip of that, and it's leaves it up for interpretation of what you want to believe. So which I can appreciate.
Agreed. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. You want to take us out?
And that's our view of the Manscaped. So if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend, share this episode, leave us a kind review, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the Manscaped Pod. If you feel like reaching out, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at themanscapedpod@gmail.com. I, of course, can't share it because you're my only friend. So
you're my only friend, and you're my best friend.
Yeah, that's right. I love you, man. So, all right. Until next time, we'll see you then.